did Garth Brooks get the song Shameless?
Did guitarist Adam Jones use a sex toy to play his solo on Tool's 1996 song Ænema?
Hey everybody, this is Big Randy with the Smarts Project. For years, I have provided security and transportation for some of the biggest names in the music industry.
I'm John. I've been a musician for over 20 years, playing everything from metal and punk to bluegrass and country.
We're bringing you a podcast about some of the weirdest myths and legends that the music industry has to offer. This is Tall Tales in Music Mythology. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast, episode 51 of Tall Tales of Music Mythology. This is Big Randy from the Smarts Project. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us for a little bit. With me is my symphony of Tourette's, a man making podcasts out of pandemonium, Mr. Jonathan Glove.
Hello, everybody.
So, a little bit of a Smarts update. Really, it's not even that big of an update. It's kind of like we've been going. Hey, guess what? We're still going. So I have a word from our attorney that we are mere days from getting back our package from the IRS and our new tax status. So things are moving pretty nicely as we line up things with the Virginia Beach school system. And I'm really looking forward to the 2018-19 school year. And just stay tuned and see how we roll. This is going to be something nobody's ever seen before. There's nothing that's even came close with any kind of high school ever, and I can't wait till we get pictures and audio and video, and we throw it out on albums and we throw it out on YouTube and all that stuff. Y'all really gonna like it. So, in the music news, I don't know if you heard about this. This is funny as hell. Rapper Dr. Dre tried to stop gynecologist Dre'Yon Burch from going by Dr. Dre. D-R-A-I. The rapper filed a trademark dispute, but the U.S. Trademark Office did not see any risk of confusion.
That's ridiculous. I had not heard that one. That's funny. Oh, my God.
So, Billy Idol frustrated Twitter users after posting about the royal wedding while refusing to reference his famous track, White Wedding. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about this one either.
Yeah, his fans on Twitter really tore a new hole in his ass. But Billy eventually caved to the Twitter pressure, and although we're pretty sure he knew what he was doing, he finally did put a tweet out there and quoted White Wedding in his own tweet. So,
that's funny.
Peer pressure prevails, I guess. So, do you have anything before we get started, brother?
No, I don't.
Right on. Okay, so my story today is for the love of my life, Jennifer, and her hall pass, Mr. Garth Brooks. A vast majority of mature music listening world is familiar with the 1991 Garth Brooks song Shameless. That was the beginning of the end for every other man on the face of the planet because women started liking this guy like he was made of milk chocolate. But what you might not know is Shameless was written by Billy Joel. And
I did not know that. Holy shit.
Almost, I would say literally like 95% of everything I'm getting ready to tell you, that's exactly what I said. Every time I read something, I was like, shut up. I did not know that. So he wrote this Jimi Hendrix-inspired power ballad for his 1989 album Stormfront. Billy's version was also produced by Mick Jones. Some of you old-timers might recognize the name as a founding member of Foreigner, and probably one of the baddest guitarists ever. Old school. Oh, man. He's a monster with the power chords and oh, man. Remember whenever Foreigner was doing Feels Like the First Time, like around that era?
Right, yeah.
Oh, man. He was a monster back then. Oh, my God. So Billy's version peaked at a very respectable number 40 on the Hot Adult Contemporary Tracks chart. Garth's rendering of the song was his 7th number 1 hit on the Billboard country charts in late 1991. Garth's frequent collaborator Trisha Yearwood, who he would later marry, provided harmony vocals.
Really?
Yeah. Rope in the Wind was the very first country album to ever debut at #1 on the Billboard 200.
Huh.
Ain't that
I did not know that either. I mean, I knew the guys had countless hits, but wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it debuted at #1. Now that's country. But what shocks me is that even during like the outlaw days, you would think that one of them boys would have had something that debuted at #1. But nothing did until he came along. So during a Q&A session at a 1995 concert in Nuremberg, Germany, Billy told the crowd that he was grateful to Garth Brooks for bringing the song to his country fans, many of whom had never heard of Billy Joel's music before. And also, if you ever get the chance to see the Q&A on the YouTube, I would highly recommend it. It's only just a tad over like 7 minutes long, and it is typical Billy Joel funny. That is a funny dude. And I'm not going to ruin it. This is all I'm going to say about it. Just a little teaser. His Ray Charles is on point. That's all I'm going to say. Nice. Garth provided a little background information on the song in the booklet liner notes from his compilation, The Hits. Quote, "Shameless was the longest shot we ever took with the song. I was talked into becoming a member of a CD club, the 40,000 CDs for a penny deal. With those clubs, they write you with a selection every month, with a selection of the month. If you don't write back and cancel, then they send it to you and charge you for it. I was on the road for 6 months with no one to check the mail and came home to find 6 compact discs in my mailbox. Stormfront by Billy Joel was one of them. I hadn't listened to Billy Joel since the late 70s, probably since Glass Houses, which was...
Oh, wow.
That was such an awesome album. I fell in love with the album and fell back in love with Billy Joel's music. One of his songs really captured me, a song called Shameless. I kept watching it, and when he did not release it as a single, we contacted his people in the hopes that we could cut it. His people sent us a letter acknowledging that he knew who I was and was very honored that I was going to cut it. That was quite a compliment for me then, as it is now. My hope is that Billy, as a writer, hears this cut and says, "Yeah, man, guy's got balls." Unquote.
Yeah, I've only ever heard the Garth Brooks version. I did not know there was even a Billy Joel version. So
that's what I've and like I said, my girlfriend Jennifer, there's 2 dudes that she listens to, and Garth is probably the #1 guy. So obviously, being around her, I hear my fair share of Garth. And and I see him on, and I've never met the man, but we come from similar backgrounds. We're both a little larger than the average bear. We both bounced in bars, and that's pretty much where it stops at. He has talent, he has money, he has, all that good stuff. But I kind of like feel where he's coming from, and so there was so much of this stuff that I was like, get the hell out of here. As long as I've been listening to this, brother, I can't believe I didn't know. So Garth performed Shameless with Billy Joel during Billy's last play at Shea concerts in 2008. And after Garth performed it in his Central Park concert in 1997, Billy came out on stage and they sang a duet of New York State of Mind, which was really good. And all 3 of those concerts, never did know about any of them. So in 2011, Billy and Garth performed the song together again when Garth was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame by Billy Joel.
Really?
Yep.
Man, again, more things I had no clue about. That's amazing.
So, as far as the story goes, that's really all I got is a story, and it's a really short one, but hardly any of that I knew, and I know there's a whole bunch of people that are just banging their heads up against their phone right now, like, I can't believe this moron's got a podcast and did not know this about Garth Brooks. But there's a few other things that I found out that really didn't have anything to do with the story, little fun facts, but I guess we can use some of these on the 100th episode. But Garth was named after his father, Troyal Raymond Brooks Jr. Garth has always made it clear just how much he cares for his mother, Colleen Carroll Brooks. He even penned an emotional tribute to her, simply titled Mom, in 2014. She passed away in 1999. Garth's mom was a country singer in the 1950s. She recorded and released 4 songs on the Capitol Records label and was a regular on Red Foley's Ozark Jubilee.
Huh.
I know. How cool is that?
Yeah. Wow.
Good looking woman too. I mean, I would I would say that she was head and shoulders above the rest of the women that I seen on Ozark Jubilee. From just a few videos that I could see of her on the YouTube. So while working as a bouncer at the Tumbleweed Ballroom in Stillwater, Oklahoma, during his senior year of college, Garth was required to throw out an unruly woman who was fighting in the ladies' room. Little did he know that woman, Sandy Mall, would become his first wife just a couple of years later. Quote, my job was to escort people out that caused disturbances, unquote, Garth recalled. She beat me about 9 times close to hell that night, too. I finally got her outside, and I just kept noticing how cute she was, and I asked her out. She told me to drop dead. The couple married in 1986 and divorced 15 years later. In 2005, Garth married fellow country superstar Trisha Yearwood. And I'll tell you, I didn't know this until Jen had told me this, but apparently it was such a big deal to Garth to keep family intact that obviously he wanted Sandy to be in their daughters' lives. And in order to do that, it's really important that the ex-wife and the current wife get along. So before he asked Trisha Yearwood to marry him, he went and got Sandy's permission to marry Trisha Yearwood.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Apparently, as it is right now, according to a couple of things that I've read and what Jen has told me, Trisha Yearwood and Sandy Mall are really good friends.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Now, how narrow of a straight and narrow does a brother got to walk like that? Jesus Christ. So
that's funny.
Garth buried the masters to his album The Hits under his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of unusual.
That is. Holy shit.
Roughly,
you're definitely not going to lose him that way.
Well, I mean, I'm almost positive they have like 24-hour surveillance on that place.
Exactly. Because I've seen so many. Well, I don't say so many, but a lot of bands have said, "Oh yeah, we lost the master tapes to that album years ago."
Right.
So that's very interesting. I mean, you're definitely not going to lose them that way. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you get free security. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roughly 3/4 of Garth's recorded songs have been duets with his wife Trisha Yearwood. The pair often performed together before Garth's divorce from his first wife, Sandy Mall, allowed them to finally tie the knot. He also refused to sing love duets with any other woman other than Trisha and insists that she's the best singer in their home. And
she does have a great voice. That's definitely for sure.
What's that?
She definitely does have a great voice. I mean,
absolutely. And their relationship is really... I mean, I've never seen personally with my own eyes, I've never seen them together, but seeing them on talk shows and stuff like that, they really, you could tell they really get along. They really enjoy being around each other. I remember one time that just reading that just now reminded me that I saw her I was flipping through channels and it was on some kind of talk show. I forgot who it was. I cringed to think it may have been The View, but it was a female host that was on it. It may have been Ellen, but it was a female host that she was talking to. I remember that. And anyway, she was just I remember what it was. It was on Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR. I was listening to that. And gotcha. I'm over 50 now, so I can listen to NPR on a regular basis. But anyway, one of the ladies on the panel had asked her something, and she goes, "Well, because she's a cook, she has her own cookbooks and things like that." And
yeah, I actually did know that. Surprisingly.
Yeah, apparently she's like really good, which I think is infinitely funny. Whenever really skinny people are good cooks, but. I think at the end of one of the cookbooks, there's a recipe that I think it's called Garth's Breakfast Bowl. And
I've heard about this. Yeah.
So she says, she goes, yeah, it's pretty much whatever's left over in the refrigerator. Put it in a bowl, heat it up, pour sausage gravy over it, and there's breakfast. So after that, she says, so you're the first one to get up? And she goes, yeah, I got to get up and, turn on the fog machine and everything so he can roll out of bed,
Hook up his Britney Spears microphone.
So the Recording Industry Association of America, or RIA, lists Garth as second only to the Beatles in worldwide sales, and Here in the States, though, he has managed to top Elvis Presley with 148 million units sold to date, about 10 million more than Elvis. He is also the only artist in the history of music to release 7 diamond certified albums.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I've never personally released a diamond album, but it sounds important.
Well, it's 10 million copies.
Right,
sold.
right.
Yeah.
So Garth became the 65th member of the Grand Ole Opry on October 6, 1990, just 18 months after his debut album was released. How badass is that?
I believe it.
And the last one I got is Garth has a charity called Look to the Stars, where celebrities from athletics, music, and acting do great programs with the kids. He once called Steve Wynn to get support for his charity. You familiar with Steve Wynn, right? Okay. Yeah, so Steve Wynn talked him into a residency while Garth was temporarily retired taking care of his girls. So with the residency in Vegas, like I said, that Garth called him, asking him for help, because Steve Wynn, somebody like Steve Wynn, you know that brother's got some juice. He can call, anybody. Anybody in the entertainment industry, he can call day or night. So he called up Steve Wynn, wanting to get some help for his charity, for his own charity. And so during that phone call, he didn't plant the seed of, hey, you ever thought about doing a residency? He flat out talked him into it, that phone call. Wow. But that was during that break that Garth was taking, that he wanted to stay home and raise his girls until they went to college and blah, 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 blah. So very respectable thing that Garth was doing. Respect the hell out of him for that one. But he says, it's all about family. I got money. I got enough money for my great grandkids to blow out, so it's not about the money. Yeah. So he bought him a jet plane. Like, it's not like, hey, you have this jet plane. No, this is yours. Pink slip and all. So apparently what he was doing is he was flying out and back every day, like 3 or 4 days a week. Damn. And maybe like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that. So 3 or 4 days a week, he's flying out and back from Stillwater, Oklahoma to Vegas and back. Gotcha. And on his own plane. And everywhere I looked, I could not find a number of how much he got paid.
Right. No, I'm sure he didn't. Like you said, Steve probably is keeping that under lock and key pretty tightly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if he has to let the stockholders know, but...
Right.
I mean, if there was a hotel chain called Big Randy, I don't care if I got stockholders or not, I'm pretty sure that I would be able to have things on lockdown that I wouldn't have to tell anybody if I didn't want to.
Exactly.
And this guy is infinitely smarter than I am, so I can't imagine. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We're going to take a little break. Big John's going to come back, tell us what he's got.
All right.
Hey friends, this is Mary from the Mary Movement Podcast. We tell true stories that will inspire, encourage, and warm your heart. So join the movement at themarymovement.com.
And we're back. Okay, so my topic today is actually one that I came up with while I was researching our 50th episode. And as I was diving into it, I realized, oh, wait a second, this is something with enough meat to it where I can make a whole episode out of it. So just kind of put it on the back burner and fleshed it out really quickly. I actually wrote a decent chunk of this in the middle of putting together all the facts for that episode there. So kind of a little interesting thing how that worked out. But I, like many others my age who discovered the joys of heavier music during the 90s, I was borderline obsessed with Tool in my mid-teens. Fortunately, though, I did grow out of that because I'm sure I was annoying as hell about it to everyone. Because Tool has a particularly, shall we say, obsessive fan base. Maybe it's just the nature of their music that kind of attracts that type of listener. The music featuring, complex arrangements with polyrhythms, shifting time signatures, unconventional playing, and an unusual mix of melody and heaviness, or at least unusual for a band with as much success as Tool. Their complexity appeals to both lovers of intricate songwriting and, unfortunately, pseudo-intellectuals and neckbeards who simply want to feel smart. If I'm being honest with myself, I was a little bit of both of those. I honestly feel like I can truly appreciate music much more now, but back then my ear was untrained at best. And while I could appreciate how Tool was unique compared to what was playing on, MTV and alternative music radio at that time, I really did go overboard with my obsession. So,
What is a teenage boy going overboard or something?
I know.
Music?
Who'd have thunk it, right? Who'd
Right?
have thunk it? But speaking of the band's success, their most recent two albums, 2001's Lateralis and 2006's 10,000 Days, both debuted at number one and sold over 500,000 copies in the first week alone. Their album before that, 1996's Ænema, which is the topic today, debuted at number two, and their first full length even eventually reached number one on the Heat Seekers chart. But the band is known for their cryptic lyrics, artwork, and music videos, and seriously, their video for Stinkfist, or track number one as it had to be called on MTV, legitimately scared the shit out of me when I first saw it. I was like 12 years old at the time, and just disturbing and unsettling, I guess, is probably the best word I could use to describe it. And to this day, anytime I see a person like moving around twitchily or shaking their head in an exaggerated manner in like a TV show or a movie or video game or whatever, I always compare it to a Tool video. There's a scene in an old episode of Venture Brothers too, where a character is doing just that. And in the commentary on the episode, the creators of the show even say something along the lines of that, like, "Oh yeah, Kano's moving his head like it's a Tool video here," or something. So, interestingly, much of the artwork and pretty much all of the music videos are handled by guitarist Adam Jones. And he actually started his career as a special effects and makeup artist for several movies such as Ghostbusters 2, Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, and Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5.
Stop it.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, seriously. It's crazy. Like I read a whole lot about this. I knew he had done some of that stuff back in the day, but I didn't realize just to the extent of how involved he was in Hollywood with that type of stuff. Yeah, it's really crazy. And I don't think I really wrote a whole lot about that down, but I mean, he did some stuff that actually won him some awards in the film industry there. He had an interest in clay sculpting as a child, and after learning stop motion animation techniques while working in the film industry, began applying it in earnest for many of Tool's early videos, such as Sober and Prison Sex. The latter of which has one of the most graphically vulgar lyrics I've ever heard outside of a Cannibal Corpse song. I play it pretty fast and loose with vulgarity sometimes, albeit not as much on our show as in everyday life. But I'd rather not offend anyone with that one, so I'm just going to let you look that up on your own if you would like to, and we'll leave it out of here. Much of the media coverage of the band focuses around singer Maynard James Keenan, and rightfully so, first and foremost, and it's usually who's the most prominent member of any band, in the media. But after all, he is the frontman and lyricist, not to mention by far the most outspoken and artistically prolific. In addition to Tool, he also fronts the bands A Perfect Circle and Pucifer, which we've mentioned before. He has a successful wine business, another thing we've talked about too, has appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast at least once, yada yada. But for this episode, I am focusing on the aforementioned guitarist, Adam Jones. He's far from the most technical guitarist in the world, and he will gladly tell you that. But when I was younger, I learned a lot about guitar techniques from playing along with his songs, namely techniques specific to drop D tuning, such as suspended second chords and what I refer to as stacked power chords and stuff like that. As I got a little more experienced, and this is kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect taking place, I kind of looked down on him because, again, he's by far the least technically proficient member of the band. But that's largely because the drummer and bassist are so insanely skilled that they'd make almost anyone else pale in comparison. And as I've developed as a musician, I've come to appreciate that his role is often more of kind of like an atmospheric one rather than a leading force. So that's, I guess that kind of clouded my judgment when I was younger. I was like, oh, I want flashy guitar solos and all sorts of shit like that. And that's not him. That's not what he does.
Right.
Nothing, that's not wrong necessarily, but at that age I was just kind of a jackass. So, whatever. But this isn't about his playing in general, but rather his playing on a particular song. As I've mentioned, the band does have a very devout following, and in the days before social media, people discussed such topics on forums and message boards, rather than Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that we have nowadays. It was just, dedicated forums for the most part. Those were kind of still vestigial remnants of the earliest dark days of interwebs. And I frequented many of the Tool-centric message boards and poured over as much info about the band as humanly possible because, again, I was an obsessive little teenage idiot. Fun fact, Pitchfork's review of Lateralis is a parody of young Tool fans' slavish devotions to the minutiae of the band's gear and whatnot. Now, I can't prove that they were directly mocking a Yahoo review that I did of the album when I was a teenager, but I swear it could have been almost copied and pasted from it. I'm not even joking. I've long since forgotten what email address or username I used back then, and I haven't actually tried to look for it, but I stumbled across that review a few years ago, and I simultaneously both kind of cracked up and cringed at it, like, oh, yeah, that sounds exactly like what I was writing about it at the time. It was just stupid and, whatever. I was like 15, right. So whatever. Anywho, while trawling these message boards back then, one day I came across a post saying that Adam had used a vibrator as a solo while playing the solo from the sorta title track to their 96 album, Ænema. I say sorta because the album is spelled like, have you ever seen that character that's like an A and an E mushed together?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. So that's how it's spelled with that character, Ænema, as a reference to one of Carl Jung's pseudoscientific psychological concepts, Ænema. But the song itself is spelled with, again, that character at the beginning, the AE, Ænema, to represent the fact that Maynard considers LA and Southern California in general to be the asshole of America.
Oh, wow.
Both geographically and socially, and that the U.S. needs an enema to, quote, flush it all away, as the lyrics of the song state. I'm not proud to admit this necessarily, but oftentimes back then I was too quick to take strangers on the internet's words as the holy gospel on such facts. And so as such, I labored for years under the delusion that this was indeed a fact. So when it came time to list some facts for that 50th episode, I typed this out and said to myself, I should really double check this before I say it out loud for hundreds of people to hear.
Right.
So that's what led me to this rabbit hole of looking into it and seeing, hey, did this actually happen the way I had heard it did? So first, I'd kind of like to break down the solo in question a little bit from a technical standpoint. So the solo, like most of Jones's few solos, is rather simplistic in technique. Until the end of the solo, it consists largely of single notes, and the transition from one to the next is clearly sliding up or down to that note as opposed to hammering on or pulling off from one to another. So, you can tell if your ear is kind of trained to listen to the techniques, you can tell if somebody is just, sliding all the way up the string or if they're just quickly moving from one note to the other, etc.
Right.
So this would lend credence to the possibility of Jones using a slide of some sort. Now, I'm not saying that you can't fret notes in a regular fashion while playing with a slide, because many guitarists will put a slide on their pinky or their ring finger and then also intersperse, the sliding notes with, just regularly fretted notes.
Right.
But the sound of the solo is very much unlike that of a regular slide. A passage played with a slide has a very smooth sound to it, and it's most notable in the most noticeable, I should say, in the transitions from note to note. The sounds, it's once you know what you're listening for, you can tell pretty easily, oh, that's played with the slide, or oh, that's not. Mm-hmm. But the sound of this solo is very harsh and modulated. So it's got this like, it's hard to really describe without listening to it, but you can hear this like cycling kind of sound going through it. I don't even want to try to do it justice. But so supposedly, according to the post that I'd come across long ago, this was due to the motor with the dildo interacting with the metal and the strings, and it's like, you know what I'm saying? So given the popularity of the EBO, an electronic device that generates a constant vibration of strings through the use of magnets, this seemed to me to be entirely possible. But like many stories we've covered here, that appears to be not quite the case. Adam actually talked about the solo in question in an interview with Guitar Player magazine in 2001. So here's the quote in question. He says, "I'm always thinking of something new I can add in. I like to do volume swells with delay to create ambient sounds. I'll scrape the strings of my guitar with various things, and I place electronic devices over the pickups to get weird sounds." The interviewer asks, "What kind of electronic devices?" He responds, "I get a lot of cool sounds out of an Ænema lady. It uses You've heard of this before?
No.
Oh, okay. It uses a spinning wire, almost like a guitar string, to rip the hair off a woman's legs. I place it over the pickups and control the speed of the motor by keeping my thumb on the coil. I got the idea from Dave Navarro, who I once saw perform a solo with a vibrator when he was in Jane's Addiction. I thought that was so cool. And then I started listening to German industrial bands such as Einstürzende, Neubauten, I think I'm pronouncing that right, I don't know, who use crazy stuff on their instruments to take their sound to another place. So I'll buy a bunch of toys, rip the guts out, and use the motors to make some noises." Yeah, right? So that's... I see now where someone could have mistaken what he was talking about there for, oh, Adam Jones used a dildo to record a solo.
Sure.
So I, like most men, and I'm guessing a lot of women in our listening audience, had absolutely zero clue what the hell an Ænema lady was. So I looked it up. And the best way that I can describe it is that it looks kind of like an electric razor, like the housing and everything is kind of shaped like that. Mm-hmm. But under the tip of it, it has a set of spinning brushes on the end. And I think it was like 3 separate brushes, if I remember right. And those grab a hold of the hair and pull them out as it spins around. Apparently, he would turn it on, hold it against the string to start effectively picking the strings super fast, and apply the pressure to the brushes with his thumb to control how fast it spun, because it didn't have like a variable speed control on it. So that actually explains why it sounds like it's modulating. It's literally the string being picked super fast, but by the brushes, and it increases or decreases in speed with his pressure from his thumb. Mm-hmm. So while he did use a device intended for women, it wasn't one used to pleasure a woman per se. But still, nonetheless, it was a very interesting thing for me to kind of dig into a little bit and learn a little more about. So, yeah.
Wow. I'll tell you, I never heard of that one with him or the one with Dave Navarro. And I've never met either one of those guys, although I would love to meet Dave Navarro. But
I wonder if the man actually owns any shirts,
But I will say that everything you just said about him in this story, as soon as you said it, I was like, yep, it sounds like him. Yep. Sure does.
So, yeah, I mean, and I know since Jane's Addiction and Tool were kind of Jane's Addiction was kind of hitting their peak in popularity at the time Tool was first starting to gain some traction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they played a lot of shows together. I'm sure they were probably fairly good friends as well. Because, I mean, Adam Jones played bass in a band with Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine back in the day. So I know they've remained friends. Maynard did guest vocals on a song on Rage Against the Machine's first self-titled album. So there's a lot of crossover there. I'm sure they're all friends, but yeah.
You know, I could tell you from I can tell you that I find a tad of humor that you didn't know what an epilady was, and maybe it's just because of age thing, because it was kind of popular whenever I was a little younger. But
okay,
it had been suggested to me from a previous relationship that maybe I should use one of those in places that are not my face. And I can tell you that if you all ever have that thought, I would strongly advise you. The only way that you should want to do that is if you A, love pain, and B, want your ball sack to look like a stress ball.
Yeah, no, man.
Yeah.
I shave, whatever, no big deal. But I'm not gonna be ripping that shit out. Hell no, man. That's a bad time waiting to happen.
I'm almost positive that, and I've never been in a position where I had to know these rules intimately, but I'm almost positive that something like that is against the Geneva Convention. I'm almost sure of it. But
yeah, that would sound terrible. I can't imagine doing that. That's God.
That's a damn
Sounds
shame
awful.
right there.
Yeah.
That's a good story, man. It's really good.
Yeah, it was a fun one, and like I said, it's something something I'd heard years and years ago. It was probably, Jesus Christ, probably 17, 18 years ago, maybe longer. I'm not sure. So it was kind of cool to dig into that too, like something I thought for sure was true, and then, oh wait, hang on, nope, that's not exactly the case. It's kind of, I see where the person who posted that got it from, but not quite the case.
I got to tell you, man, that in fact, I told you that we was over at my buddy JR's house yesterday, and everybody there was talking about music and whatnot, and I really try to keep on the DL because I think it's really egomaniacal, self-centric to egocentric to talk about whatever, like if you did cool shit in your life, to always tell those stories all the time. So
right.
A lot of this stuff, pretty much anything that's work related, I don't talk about unless somebody asks me, except for my little close circle, you and Jen and Rod T and whatnot.
Right.
So anyway, I just happened to be in a group of people that were all EMS workers. And I guess about 3 hours into it, I turned to Jen and I said, man, you know how nice it is that I'm sitting in a group of people that have better stories than me? Jeez, man. Because the whole night long, I'm just shaking my head like, Jesus Christ, man. And I'm bitching about, some of the stuff that I went through. Jesus Christ. I can't even hold the candle next to these people. Jeez. But anyway, there was one of the people that was there. We were talking about music and whatnot. And she was saying, oh, I know a lot about music. And she kind of had a different opinion of her than I did of her. But I mean, she's a nice lady, just really likes herself a lot. And so anyway, she's talking about all these made up scenarios that have happened in her life at different times, and people, how do you know that about music? And how do you know? I went to that concert and this time, and I went to that concert and this time. So, so anyway, somebody had said, well, Randy has a music podcast. And I was like, oh God, no, please don't go there. I just don't want to even have this because I'll be the first in line to say, I don't know shit from apple butter. I didn't think I knew anything about music when we started this damn podcast. Now, after being friends with you and meeting some of the people that we met, it is positive. I am not qualified to be a co-host in our own damn podcast. So the very thought of having this conversation of this girl that don't know shit from apple butter about music, but has really got a high opinion of herself, and me on the other side of the tennis net, that I know that I don't have anything to contribute to a music conversation, but yet we have a music podcast. That was going to be an uncomfortable conversation at best. But so I tried to use a little tongue fu to, get out of that one, but
Be the artful dodger there. Yeah.
exactly. Yes. So, so anyway, all right, well, let's go ahead and close this bad boy down unless you got anything.
Now that's all I got.
Go ahead,
So,
brother.
hey guys, anytime you've got a music myth or legend you'd like to hear us talk about on the show, feel free to reach out to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at Tall Tales of Music Mythology, on Twitter at T2M2 Podcast, or you can email us at T2M2podcast@gmail.com.
Right now, Smarts is going through a little bit of a rebrand, so the website's going to be down for a bit, but you can catch up with us on the Smarts Project on the social media. We're on the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Smarts Project. You can send us a message. We love hearing your ideas, questions, and suggestions, and if it's even good enough, we'll even do a shout-out for you, or maybe even an entire story or episode if it's good enough in your name. In the meantime, we really appreciate you guys listening to us, no matter where you're from. And right now, as we record this, it is Memorial Day, so thank you to all the crazy boys and girls that are out there protecting our country, and we appreciate what you're doing. And for the ones that are lost and the ones that have been lost, we appreciate your dedication and everything that you've lost. So in the meantime, be kind to each other. Tell your kids you love them while you got them. And whatever you do in life, never be a myth.
Always be a legend.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.